Night Watch Archives. Case File 006. The Lizard Man, The Summer of Sightings. Section 1. When one encounter became many. Some mysteries begin with a single witness. Others begin when a second witness steps forward. Case File 001 examined the encounter that introduced the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp to the historical record. One damaged vehicle, one eyewitness, one official law enforcement report. By itself, that incident might have remained nothing more than an unusual local story. It did not. Within days, Lee County began changing. The phones at the sheriff's office rang more often. Residents started talking about unusual sounds along back roads. Hunters spoke quietly about movement in the woods they could not explain. Drivers became reluctant to travel certain stretches of road after dark. The question was no longer, what did one young man see? The question became, why are more people reporting similar experiences? That distinction matters. One unexplained encounter begins an investigation. Multiple independent reports create a pattern. The summer of 1988 became defined not by a single event, but by a growing collection of witnesses. Some described seeing a large figure crossing isolated roads. Others reported glowing red eyes reflecting in their headlights before disappearing into the darkness. A few claimed they heard heavy movement within the swamp itself. Always at night, always brief, always gone before anyone could investigate. Most reports shared one characteristic: uncertainty. Very few witnesses claimed a prolonged encounter. Most described only seconds, a glimpse, a sound, a shape standing where nothing should have been standing. Then it was gone. That uncertainty did not stop the reports. If anything, it encouraged them. People who might otherwise have dismissed what they experienced now wondered whether it resembled the encounter already making headlines across Lee County. The story itself had become part of the environment. Expectation and observation now occupied the same roads. That does not invalidate later reports. It simply changes how investigators must examine them. Night Watch Archives approaches these sightings carefully. Each report deserves documentation. Each report also deserves context, because once a mystery becomes widely known, every new observation must be evaluated against both the evidence and the influence of the story itself. That challenge defined the weeks following the original encounter. Law enforcement continued documenting reports. Wildlife officials evaluated physical evidence. Journalists returned repeatedly to Bishopville searching for new developments. Residents found themselves answering the same question from friends and strangers alike. Have you seen it? Most answered, no. Some answered, maybe. A very few answered, yes. Those answers transformed a single cryptid encounter into one of America's most closely watched regional mysteries. The report spread beyond Browntown Road, beyond Scape Ore Swamp, beyond Lee County itself. What had begun as an isolated investigation was rapidly becoming a statewide story. As additional reports emerged during the summer of 1988, the focus shifted from a single eyewitness account to the broader question of whether independent sightings represented a genuine pattern or the natural spread of a developing legend. Tonight, we open the second file, not to revisit the night that started the legend, but to investigate what happened after, because sometimes the most important question is not whether the first witness was correct. It is why so many others believed they had seen something too. As the reports increased, so did public attention. By early July, the lizard man was no longer just a conversation among neighbors. Newspapers carried fresh stories almost daily. Radio stations discussed the sightings. Television crews arrived in Lee County looking for interviews. For many residents, life suddenly felt different. Roads that had always been quiet now attracted curious visitors. People drove slowly along Browntown Road, hoping to glimpse whatever had frightened Christopher Davis only days before. Some carried cameras, others carried rifles. Nearly everyone carried expectations. That presented investigators with a new problem. The more attention a case receives, the more difficult it becomes to separate observation from influence. Law enforcement understood this immediately. Deputies continued responding to reports. Each call was documented, each witness interviewed, each piece of physical evidence examined. The sheriff's office treated the reports as they would any unexplained incident. Not because deputies believed an unknown creature was roaming Lee County, but because citizens were reporting events they considered genuine. That distinction mattered. Authorities neither confirmed nor dismissed extraordinary claims. Instead, they documented uncertainty. Wildlife officials reached much the same conclusion. South Carolina Department of Natural Resources personnel examined reported tracks, possible claw marks, damage attributed to the creature. Some evidence proved inconclusive. Other reports could be explained through known wildlife. None produced definitive proof that an unknown animal existed. Yet neither did the investigations eliminate every report. The result was unusual. Official agencies acknowledged that something had happened, without identifying exactly what that something was. This careful balance between documentation and skepticism became one of the defining characteristics of the Lizard Man investigation. Meanwhile, residents continued sharing experiences. A driver reported seeing a large figure disappear into roadside vegetation moments before reaching the location. Another described hearing something running beside his vehicle through the darkness. Hunters spoke of heavy movement deep within the swamp. Movement unlike anything they associated with deer, wild hogs, or black bears. Many reports lacked physical evidence. Some contradicted one another. Others appeared surprisingly consistent. Investigators noticed that witnesses often described the creature in similar terms. Tall, powerfully built, dark in color, moving with unusual speed. Most encounters lasted only seconds. Very few witnesses claimed prolonged observation. That consistency interested investigators, not because it confirmed the creature's existence, but because independent witnesses repeatedly emphasized the same characteristics. At the same time, hoaxes began appearing. False reports, fabricated tracks, stories told for attention. These complicated an investigation already struggling beneath growing media interest. Every fabricated claim consumed valuable time. Every hoax made legitimate witnesses less willing to come forward. That pattern is common in high-profile investigations. As public fascination grows, reliable information becomes increasingly difficult to isolate. Night Watch Archives recognizes that challenge. The value of the 1988 investigation lies not in accepting every report, nor rejecting them all. Its value lies in preserving the documented record exactly as it unfolded. Because somewhere within the noise, the original questions remained unanswered, and the investigation was only beginning. As reports continued arriving, the investigation changed. It was no longer enough to interview witnesses after the fact. People wanted answers. If something was moving through Scape Ore Swamp, they wanted it found. Searches began where the reports pointed most often. The roads surrounding Browntown, the wooded edges bordering the swamp, creek crossings, remote stretches of land where visibility disappeared only a few steps beyond the pavement. Law enforcement officers were joined by wildlife officials and local volunteers familiar with the terrain. The objective remained straightforward: locate physical evidence, tracks, hair, broken vegetation, anything that could be documented and examined. At times, search teams believed they had found promising leads. Large footprints appeared in soft ground. Some displayed what looked like 3 elongated toes. Others were incomplete, distorted by mud, or damaged before investigators could preserve them. Without clear measurements and continuous trackways, no firm conclusions could be reached. Physical evidence remained frustratingly elusive. The swamp itself complicated every search. Scape Ore Swamp is not easily explored. Dense vegetation limits visibility. Standing water obscures tracks. Wildlife moves freely through the same areas investigators hope to examine. Evidence can disappear within hours beneath rain, mud, or ordinary animal activity. Experienced outdoorsmen understood these limitations. Finding nothing did not necessarily mean nothing had been there. At the same time, finding unusual impressions did not automatically prove an unknown creature existed. The investigation demanded restraint. That restraint became increasingly difficult as public interest continued growing. News crews filmed search efforts. Curious residents followed investigators into areas that previously saw almost no visitors. Some hoped to help. Others simply wanted to witness history unfolding. Unfortunately, increased attention created new problems. Potential evidence became contaminated. Footprints overlapped one another. Vehicles entered areas that investigators had hoped to preserve. Distinguishing original observations from later disturbance became nearly impossible. This challenge confronts nearly every high-profile investigation. The more people searching for evidence, the more difficult genuine evidence becomes to preserve. Wildlife specialists also examined the reports from another perspective. Could an unfamiliar animal explain what witnesses believed they had seen? Black bears, though uncommon in the immediate area during that period, were considered. Large dogs, escaped exotic animals, known reptiles. Each possibility was evaluated against the descriptions provided by witnesses. None matched comfortably. Some explained portions of the reports. None explained all of them. That left investigators exactly where they had begun, with questions, not conclusions. Perhaps the most significant outcome of the searches was not what they discovered, but what they failed to discover. No body, no den, no biological evidence capable of identifying an unknown species. For skeptics, that absence spoke loudly. For others, it merely reflected the difficulty of locating a creature that, if real, appeared to avoid people almost as quickly as it encountered them. The investigation had reached an important point. Eyewitness reports continued. Physical evidence remained inconclusive. Official agencies had exhausted the most immediate avenues available to them. Yet the story refused to disappear. Instead, it spread far beyond Lee County. And with that expansion, the Lizard Man ceased being only a local investigation. It became a national phenomenon. By the end of the summer, the investigation no longer belonged solely to Lee County. What began as a series of sheriff's reports had become national news. Newspapers across the country carried stories about the mysterious creature of Scape Ore Swamp. Television programs dispatched reporters to Bishopville. Radio talk shows debated what witnesses had seen. For the people who actually lived there, the attention felt surreal. Their quiet, rural community had become known for something no one could explain. The media transformed the investigation in ways both helpful and harmful. On one hand, additional coverage preserved the historical record. Interviews were recorded, official statements were documented. Witnesses who might otherwise have remained anonymous stepped forward. Without that attention, much of what happened during the summer of 1988 might have faded into local memory. Instead, it became part of the permanent record. On the other hand, public fascination invited exaggeration. Artists created dramatic illustrations of the creature. Television reenactments emphasized suspense over restraint. Some descriptions grew larger, more terrifying, more certain than the original eyewitness accounts ever suggested. Gradually, the lizard man being described in popular culture began drifting away from the lizard man preserved in official reports. That distinction remains important. The historical investigation describes uncertainty. Popular culture often prefers certainty. It demands clear villains, clear heroes, clear monsters. The original case offered none of those. It offered only witnesses trying to describe experiences they could not explain. As the years passed, the legend continued evolving. The image of the lizard man appeared on souvenirs. Tourism campaigns embraced the story. Television documentaries revisited the mystery. Each retelling introduced the legend to a new audience. Yet something remarkable happened. Despite decades of publicity, the core facts remained largely unchanged. Christopher Davis reported his encounter. Law enforcement documented the incident. Additional sightings followed. Physical evidence remained inconclusive. No definitive explanation emerged. That consistency is unusual. Many modern legends become increasingly exaggerated over time. The lizard man resisted that process because official reports remained available for comparison. The historical record continued anchoring the legend even as popular culture expanded upon it. Today, nearly 4 decades later, the lizard man remains one of America's best-known regional cryptid legends. Not because the mystery was solved, but because it never was. Nightwatch Archives considers that an important distinction. A solved case becomes history. An unsolved case remains an investigation. The summer of 1988 eventually came to an end. The emergency faded. The search efforts slowed. Law enforcement returned to routine operations. Residents resumed their ordinary lives. But the questions remained, and those questions ensured that Scape Ore Swamp would never again be just another stretch of South Carolina wilderness. For investigators, the active search ended. For the archive, the record never closes so easily. Not every investigation ends with an answer. Some end with silence. The Lizard Man investigation is one of them. By the close of 1988, the wave of sightings had largely subsided. Calls to the sheriff's office became less frequent. Searches grew less common. News crews moved on to other stories. Without new physical evidence, there was little more investigators could do. The official investigation ended quietly. There was no dramatic announcement, no declaration that the mystery had been solved, no statement confirming an unknown creature had been found. Instead, the case simply returned to the files. Law enforcement had documented every report it could investigate. Wildlife officials had examined the available evidence. The limits of the investigation had been reached. That quiet conclusion is often overlooked. Many people assume the case was dismissed. It was not. Neither was it confirmed. It remained exactly where the evidence left it, unresolved. That distinction explains why the lizard man continues to occupy a unique place in American folklore. It survives not because extraordinary claims were proven, but because ordinary investigative procedures failed to produce an ordinary explanation. The historical record remains remarkably restrained. One documented encounter, additional eyewitness reports, physical evidence that never reached definitive conclusions, an official response grounded in careful documentation rather than speculation. That balance is rare. It allowed the story to endure without requiring belief. In the decades that followed, occasional sightings continued to surface. A driver reported movement near the edge of the swamp. A hunter described hearing unusually heavy footsteps deep within the trees. Someone glimpsed a tall figure crossing a lonely road at night. Most of these later reports remained isolated. Unlike the concentrated wave of 1988, they appeared years apart. Few generated official investigations. Fewer still produced physical evidence. Whether they represented genuine encounters, misidentifications, or the influence of an already famous legend, cannot now be determined. Later sightings became increasingly sporadic and were shaped by the growing public awareness of the lizard man story, making careful interpretation even more important than during the original investigation. For Nightwatch Archives, that uncertainty is the story, not the creature itself. But the investigation, the witnesses, the documentation, the willingness of law enforcement to preserve reports without forcing conclusions. That is why the lizard man remains worthy of study nearly 40 years later. It demonstrates how a modern legend is formed, not through exaggeration, but through unanswered questions. This concludes the second investigation within the Lizard Man collection. The first file documented the encounter that began the legend. This file examined the summer when that encounter became a pattern. Other files remain: the evidence, the competing theories, the cultural legacy. The mystery of Scape Ore Swamp did not end in 1988. It simply entered a new chapter. Those records remain inside the archive, waiting to be opened. Case file 006 is now closed. The truth waits in the dark.